This is a show featuring 57 artists around the world to take place, which here the 22nd floor and also the 6th floor downstairs, and also a piece up top on the rooftop. So today we're very, very honored to have the curator, Cosmin Costinas, of course, and some artists here with us today. So at this talk, I would like to start with Cosmin, maybe to give the audience a bit of the background story and how this show begins and how this started from Bangladesh and how this whole journey begins. And then we will invite artists to give the introduction of their work, so which is showcasing the exhibition. Cosmin.
And thank you all for coming tonight. Yes, well, the exhibition started as an invitation by the Dhaka Art Summit for an exhibition in the framework of this event. That is a biennial event taking place in Bangladesh. And it was initially an invitation to look at connections between South Asia and Southeast Asia. And these regions, like almost any other region that we operate with, are largely the result of conventions, and conventions that are partially necessary to understand how we operate, but partially the result of like different sort of like prejudices and different kind of historical relics of different ways of thinking, of different ways of mapping. So the response to this invitation was to look at these geographies and this context, but to place them in an even wider, in an even broader geography that is perhaps even more arbitrary than the regions of South Asia and Southeast Asia. This is the geography that was defined by the Austronesian migration, the largest expanse of Austronesian languages. So this is a group of languages that originated millennia ago in Taiwan and spread as far as Polynesia in the east and Madagascar in the west. This is only when you see the show, it's not really a dominant part of it, but it's the reason for this approximate geography of from where most of the artists in the show originate. The show has different threads in that combine with each other. And one is continuing this or needing to substantiate this geography is based on this idea of traveling and migration, both in a historical sense and particularly in the pre-colonial sense, in the period, because Austronesian migration was the largest cultural expansion in human history outside Western colonialism, and of course it took place in very different circumstances. But the idea of circulation reappears in different other historical and a lot of moments of confluence, of contamination, of exchange, of conflict as well, are somehow permeating in the show, in the works of many artists. But then, of course, the majority of the works are looking at the current moment and the different moments of tension that our contemporaneity holds. Migration itself is another major reality of our times, both as the cases of emergency of refugee crisis, both migration and also migration taking place in very different circumstances. The issue of this loss of confidence in certain ideals of democracy and certain ideals of progress that are seen throughout the world, from Hong Kong to China to the United States to the West to Southeast Asia to South Asia to almost every context, manifest in different ways, but circumscribed to certainly a global phenomenon. Another leading thread in the exhibition is the emergence of religion, of politicized religion, as a symptom of this loss of belief in certain ideals of a liberal society. Again, appearing in different forms, appearing within different religions, and it was very important to bring examples from as many different manifestations of this politicized religion, from violent and fascist Buddhism and Hinduism and Christianity and Islam, in conflict with each other, of course. Now, a lot of the and probably one of the most visible components of the show, like one of the most visible characteristics of the show, is the presence of textiles, and they appear in very different ways, in different artworks, in different textile materials that were produced by artists and makers that are also like outside of what is considered conventionally the realm of art. And it's a very important conversation for many reasons, because on one hand, textiles are the holders and they encapsulate in their history, in their forms, in the materials used, so many of these histories that I mentioned, from very early on, very ancient cultural influences and circulations. You will see in many textiles influences from India to Southeast Asia, and in many directions within this geography. You will see the traces, the very violent traces of colonialism in the history of many textiles, from the history of muslin, which was one of the major products of Bangladesh, of Bengal, and that was eradicated by British colonial policy, to the extent that even the plant, the type of cotton that was used for producing muslin was biologically eradicated. And the major waves of industrial loss and collapse that affect so many parts of the world are also present in textiles. And the history, the economy of textiles, are very often at the forefront of this big process of deindustrialization. And another very important part of the exhibition is bringing in various types of indigenous knowledge. This is in relation to what I mentioned earlier, this drive to find parallel models to Western modernity, but of course in this case it's not, it's the positive process of decolonization that is taking place in so many parts of the world and has really accelerated in the last few decades, and in the last few years, there actually this process has gone further and has empowered and brought to visibility many voices from many indigenous communities, which are present through the work of artists from these communities, are present in the work of artists who engage with these communities, are present in the works of artists that relate in different other ways with this knowledge and with this art history. And lastly, it's also very important to say that this is an exhibition, and exhibitions have their own very particular language. And if you navigate through it, you will see that all these stories that I was bringing up in different order and somehow mention the idea that they wave into a cloth is an imperfect way of representing the kind of experience that you get as you navigate an exhibition, because ultimately the voice of what you see belongs to each and every individual artist, and artists have a very different and distinctive and particular presenting their own vision. There are many works that do not actually speak about any of the things that I mentioned. Their presence creates tension, creates knowledge, creates experience that contributes to this realm of thinking, of reflection, of wonderment in these areas that I mentioned. But again, being an exhibition and not an essay, we're talking about a very different way of experiencing. So on this note, I think we should give the voice to the actual artists in the exhibition.
Exactly. I think this is really good to follow up with Pablo. I would like to invite at the first and to maybe give us a bit background of the work that you're showing in this exhibition. Pablo's work is on the 6th floor with a very beautiful series of photo documents.
Well, thank you. And thank you, Cosmin, for including me. I'm what you may call as an add-on. I was showing in Diana's part of the show at the Dhaka Art Summit, and Cosmin loved the work so much that he pinched me and brought me to Hong Kong. So that's just the background. But my work deals with family in one sense, because my mother is related into the Buddhist tribes which live between Burma, Bangladesh and India. Currently, I've only been able to do the Bangladesh and India part, and it's looking at cross borders, same people, indigenous, who get divided because national boundaries happen. In this case, it was India and Pakistan, and then East Pakistan became Bangladesh. So people's nationalities change, geographies change, but they are pretty much the same group of people. It also has a layer where I'm trying to use science, which is to do with looking at their DNA, where my premise is that there are myths and legends that indigenous communities carry through with them about where they came and how they migrated and then where they went again. And the endeavor is to try and look at the DNA of the people, the three groups, and see whether myth and legend matches to science. That's actually part B, so it's an ongoing project right now. What I've tried to do currently is work with an imagined DNA. So the way I've installed it is like a DNA pattern. When you break DNA down and you analyze it into markers, you find these graphic bands and blobs, and I've tried to work the photographs in that manner. Plus, I'm working with weavers, which is Cosmin's interest too, where I've experimented with weavers to see with their to how they have broken away, or can I make them break away from their traditions and weave graphic DNA patterns as a test. Eventually, I will have the DNA of the weavers broken down into markers and then give it back to them as a graphic design for them to weave their own DNA. So it's an ongoing project. This is actually, I wasn't going to try and show it, but Diana forced me to show it at the Dhaka Art Summit, and it's what we call a proof of concept. So it's on the 6th floor. Do pass by, take a look. I don't know whether the speak and the work match. Thank you.
Thank you, Pablo. I think I would like to invite Art Labor Collective, Taoyuan Fan and Zhang Tonggong, pardon my pronunciation. So they both have individual works, both on the 22nd and the 6th floor, and they also have a piece of work as a collective group of Art Labor together with Amit. Maybe you would like to explain a bit. So Art Labor has 3 members, including myself, Thảo Nguyên, and Công Tùng. We're based in Saigon, Vietnam. We have another collective member who couldn't be here because of visa reasons. So I would like to introduce the work, the collective work that we exhibit here. It's called the Curated, and it has the origin concept that is intrigued by the life and the philosophy behind the death of the Gerai people who stay in the central highlands of Vietnam, are among the most populated so-called ethnic minority that based in the central highlands of Vietnam, where artist Trương Công Tùng comes from. So Công Tùng family migrated there in the early 2000s, but they are the Viet people who make up of 90% of the Vietnamese. So when the migration happened, the Central Highlands has become very quickly deforested, and now there are a lot of coffee plantations, rubber plantations, and pepper. So the Gerai people who used to be animistic, now many of them converted to Christianity or Protestant, and they used to have a ritual practice during their funeral, where they will sculptures from wood from the forest, and they will have these sculptures placed around the tombstone, and after that ritual finished, they will abandon this tombstone for good. So during the from the 60s to the 90s, many researchers actually came to the Central Highlands and showed the interest in researching about these sculptures, and many of these sculptures was looted. So now these kind of traditions are no longer widely practiced. So when Art Labor as a collective, we came to stay in Tùng hometown, and we are very intrigued by the lifestyle of the Gerai people, and we visited the artisans who know how to sculpt these type of sculptures, and we provide them with the wood from the coffee plantations and the rubber plantations, the kind of wood that like being chopped off because of the price drop of these plants, and we provide them to make any sculptures that they like. So Cosmin and us selected a few sculptures from this Gerai project, and we showed here with a mural that we painted on the wall. And we kind of want to bring this collaboration with the artisans in the Central Highlands of Vietnam. And even though it's no longer in the ritual context and now very related to a fine art context, but it's a critical moment for us to bring up this kind of tradition in a kind of contemporary way of thinking.
Thank you. The Gerard piece, the sculpture is on the 22nd floor. You can see there was the blue wall as a background. You can see the mirror and the sculpture there. And so for the Hong Kong edition, we also featuring together with Trevor. Trevor was originally at the Dhaka iteration already, and also we include 3 other female Hong Kong artists for the first time in this iteration. So I think it may be like pop. Oh yes, like pop. You were in Dhaka. I was always confused with that. So maybe, Trevor, would you like to start with your research about this plant and how it begins?
Yes, actually, the plants that I have been working with that also showing in this project is a plant called Acanthus. This plant actually shown with Cosmin. This exhibition is the second part of the whole project, because the plant is originally from Mediterranean. You always see that in the Caribbean architecture, like the very typical kinds of Western ornament that are everywhere. And but not many people see the actual plant or think of what the actual plant is. And the first time I think it's like 4 or 5 years ago, I went to see the actual plant in a greenhouse, like not directly to go there, just like find on the greenhouse. And that's the one that behind us. That is the acanthus. And yes, that's the actual plants that we always see for a long time on the decoration, but let us see the actual object. And that's also triggered me to do a project about this plant. And when I start with the first project, then I talked with Cosmin, and Cosmin also said that they have a lot of like these kinds of acanthus ornament in the culture of like Southeast Asia, or when the it's South Asia, yes, and Southeast Asia also, they also, but basically this pattern travels. So even like Hong Kong, they have this pattern, and also the things that I'm working actually is also from a little bit actually is from China. So when I do the more research about these plants in Bangladesh, I found out that they always use this as the sing rolls that is on the top of the ceiling that they hang on the like chandelier or like fan. They have that kind of decoration on the ceiling. And this also happened in other places like Australia, Hong Kong in the past, as in the 80s. They also a lot of like fancy house, they have this kind of ceiling rolls. And I found that they have a very special color when I do the research on the internet. They have like blue, pink, or like purple. They actually paint the color like different colors on the ceiling rolls to make it like very beautiful. And I just think that in Hong Kong for or even though when I go traveling, when I go to like London to see the actual the decoration is always white and also in marbles. And I think it's very exciting to see, very special to see that how a different culture when they meet up this, but at the same time it's like because of the somehow is a Victorian architect that brings the same rules to India, and also like during the Victorian era period. So that's why it's also have that kind of connection of why that kind of like decoration arrived to this area. So, and this is also something that I find interested, and then I'll make the Bangladesh version in Dhaka. But in Hong Kong, I think it's not that like perfect to use the Dhaka version in Hong Kong. So in a way, I change it into another color which is fit into the style in Hong Kong, which is gold. and it's also funny when I try to source out how to paint the actual like most gold alike paint. I think that actually I don't have any gold accessory or something, anything that made with gold in my. I don't actually own any gold. Yeah, but they are not gold. so that's why I was thinking, this is also the same way when the people use the acanthus ornament. They also don't know, and even though for the carpenter, they never see the acanthus, but they always have to make an acanthus sculpture or draw the acanthus pattern. So I think this is somehow that I feel is connected with the work in Hong Kong.
So maybe now with Christy.
Hi everyone, my name is Christy. I'm very honored to be picked by Cosmin because he actually selected my piece for the Human Rights Art Prize 2018. So I'm happy to be part of the show, thank you. And the stitching is a piece that you can see on the 6th floor where you see some abstract shapes of fabrics hanging with a projection in the middle. It is the first piece of my Laborland series. I used to make a lot of feminist art about body politics. And I was in a seminar about transnational feminism in Ohio one time. And I met other scholars, and one of the scholars talked about the collapse of the Rana Plaza in Bangladesh. And it caused like thousands of women died in that incident. And I knew it, and she described it in great details. And I thought, when I was a kid, I grew up in Hong Kong in a very poor family, in a public housing estate. And when I grew up, my mother, she was a full-time housewife. But at the same time, she also go to factory to get some work and bring it home and to finish the work at home and then bring it back to the factory. Factory to us is once so close to our life. But when I grow up, these factories start to move to mainland to somewhere else because Hong Kong was developing. And then at that time, I thought, what was that person who died in the factory was my mother? How was I feel? And I think this globalization to create this gap between who makes things and also who consume things. So I start to look into issues like this. So I took a shirt that is an H&M shirt about fast fashion. And I took that shirt and then I was thinking the person who actually sewed the shirts together. And I learned that this shirt was being sewn together in 50 minutes. And I was like, no, I make clothes too. I like to make clothes. But then I never be able to sew a shirt together in 15 minutes. That was impossible to me. So I want to re-experience that labor. So I spent 5 hours on the desk and tried to use a stitch remover to remove each stitches one by one. And then it took me almost 5 hours to remove 3,745 stitches. And then I count all the stitches one by one. I thought my action would be able to re-experience the labor of that person. But of course, my action was, just very self-satisfying to satisfy myself because I'm not that person. I never be able to experience that labor. But it kind of inspired me to create this whole Laborland series because labor was once so close to us. Like mothers make our own clothes. We grow our own land. But now it seems labor becomes something so exotic that we want to use labor as a hobby. Because what is the boundary of hobby? And what is the boundary of I take it as a career? What is the boundary between I'm a sweatshop worker who works 12 hours a day and what if I'm a hobbyist who actually like to just sew shirts together? So that is the reason that I created this stitching piece.
Both Trevor and Christy's works are on the 6th floors, and we have Jaffa and Holland, and their piece coincidentally was next to each other in the corridor, at the end of the corridor, and then Jaffa has another piece here. Jaffa, would you like to?
It's a kind of very consistently, we choose some work, maybe we are very connected, for example, like Bangladesh, whatever, labors. I see the connections here with Hong Kong because I was illegal labor when I was 12 in garment industry in Hong Kong, really working hard for that. And so I understand what is laboring thing, so what that means. So but this time, thank you for Cosmin to pick the work. That work in Kanya's work, actually that is from 14 years ago, and when I was in Kenya. But that time I don't really aware at what I'm paying attention. But that work actually is a tribute to those Chinese labor worker who died in Kenya, Lamu Island. Because I found that history in their National Museum in Lamu, because I found a very interesting little fragments, ceramic fragments all around the islands, and then those people just pick it for the jewelry, decoration stuff. So they never understand what those things are. So and then when I'm asked those history, they say, "Oh, we don't know." But they always tell me, what is a craft we have. They are very proud of their craft. Is the wooden frame. All those patterns looks very beautiful, and because it's so muscular interpretations of their culture and trying to make a joke with them, I say, oh, this wood carving style, I know, I recognize that is, looks very similar to the ceramic, Chinese ceramics piece. And also, I say, those are frames with so many flowers, flowery patterns, which we have all the time in China. So I make a joke, just trying to kind of a defense, of the origins of the of those patterns. So that's why I try to make something very soft to represent that part of the history. And a very interesting point is that when I really seriously to do the research, I find all those patterns is not only from China, it's also from other countries, which those trading boats and travel and stop by there. And then you can see the details there. Some of the work is not really Chinese work. Is some. Sorry, I don't recognize what kind of those work. I just picked up from the wooden frame. So I repaint it. And then I'm thinking what kind of form I should represent. So then back to gender, because that is a very complicated culture, because Lamu is the islands, is the eastern islands of the Kenya, and is Kenya, is a Christian society. Major is believing Christians, but Lamu is a very special for Muslim community. And then I thought it's a kind of very exotic thing, and then I find out, I asked those ladies with the black boo-boo, they say boo-boo. And then I say, don't you feel it's so hot and very inconvenience to carry on that all the time? They say, no, it's a very convenience for us. If I hang out with a guy, when it wouldn't embarrass my husband or the family of the husband. So, and then they take it as, this is how I think, very interesting, how we see them and then how they reinterpret their traditions in another way. That's why I make something looks like their mosquito net, because they have mosquito net all in all the place. And then, but in the other way, that is a very individual mosquito net. So you can carry that all the time to whatever you like, but it's semi-transparent. It seems like you can see through something, but you cannot really see something in depth. So that is my first work to think about what is, those fabrics connect to the labor, connect to those history, connect to the genders, and also with the local legend. So and then I start from there, and then come back Hong Kong and start something else, and then for this umbrella stuff is really another tribute to my childhood memories of those garments ladies. But this work is only one white piece in my series. Usually the people only see the blue series with the Starry Night. So actually this one is called Starry Day, because now it's nighttime, so you don't see the detail. Starry Day have to be seen in the Starry Day. It's kind of transparent and then semi-transparent. You can still see the different varieties, colors of the white. It's a recycle umbrella, and that is after umbrella movement. I trying to make something different is to see those invisible stars. So many people behind the scene, so many people behind the movement in society, and then we never credit them. So all those heroines, just like those laborers in our society, and those unprivileged people maybe, or something even underground, you never see them. But now is look at them in decent way. So and then show it in the museum or gallery. But those white umbrella is very hard to get it. So it's really hard. And then actually, I'm going to make another white umbrella flag in manifesto. So it's kind of like showing something invisible. But I'm also doing the white cloth in series, and that is another part about the dirt. how we want to get rid of the dirt, but it's still there. That kind of labels.
Yeah, people cannot see from here because it's transparent. So yes, so it would I would recommend you come back in the next day. And when it's daytime, it's actually very stunning and beautiful.
Hello, my name is Ao Hoi Lam. My work is like this, because it's easier to let me to explain. It is like a mirror and a frame. The idea is about making a wish to the sky. So it is a bit similar to Javer's idea related to the sky and the star, but my work is dark. It's about darkness, and also it is like a self-portrait. If you just standing in front of the work, you will see yourself in the darkness. And I think this work, why in this show, I think is about the religious dimension. As Cosmin just said that this show, one of the aspects is about the conflict of religion in the Asia Pacific area. But I'm from Hong Kong. I think everybody, maybe most of the people think that religion's conflict is not obvious in Hong Kong. Or for me, the problem is not the conflict between the religion, but maybe the problem is because I have no religion or I have no faith sometimes. Why I say that? Because when I feel helpless, hopeless, I will not go to the church. I will not go to the temple. It seems the only thing I can do is I look into the sky and, yes, make a wish. And then the darkness, the sky, or sometimes I hope, is there any shooting star will fall down in this moment? I think the object of this, the art object for me sometimes is like a meditation object. For me, because I'm looking at a small object and I can have a spiritual time to think. In fact, my major work are paintings. So this is quite an alternative work. I think included in this show is very matched because the first time I show this work is also with a magenta wall. It's similar to this feeling, and my feeling to come to this show, the first impression is very intense, the colorful wall, and when I walk around, it seems that I went to I'm not in Hong Kong. It seems I went to somewhere in South Pacific or South Asia, and in a museum to seeing a show. So I think I will bring my family to come here. No need to travel.
I think what the artist here today really gives a very dimension of the works that this exhibition is trying to express. I would like to open the floor if anybody has questions to the artist or the curator. Yeah, so I think maybe because people haven't seen most of the works, and we just opened it.
Hello? I got it. A lot of the works in the show are extremely politically sensitive and also, in some cases, quite dangerous to show in your own context. But what I think is really interesting, at least from Bangladesh, is that artists were able to discuss or address issues that journalists definitely could not, especially in this space of, shrinking freedom of press and shrinking freedom of speech. I think maybe, if you guys could talk a bit from your end at Art Labor, how you deal with, how you use this international art context to try to address really urgent local issues.
Thank you very much for your question. I think many works in this exhibition are political, of course, but also in a way subtly poetic that discuss a lot of issues that has a sense of urgency. And I think in the context of Vietnam, because it's still the similar to China, it's a communist country. So I think for the arts, there is a sense of self-censorship and there is still cultural censorship. But I think things are changing positively because, for example, imagine in the 90s, people don't really travel. It's impossible to travel and there was no social media. So artists are very limited in their own country and they don't really have any voices. But now people are started to exhibit it internationally and the younger people, younger generation have been educated overseas. So I think there is a kind of more generous voices. And in our work, personally, for Tum work and my work, for my work, for example, I like to research about historical narrative that has become a kind of mythology. For example, one work near the entrance of the exhibition is called Voyage de Rhodes, and it's a series of watercolor paintings on top of old book pages. And this book is written by a French Jesuit missionaries who came to Vietnam in the 17th century, and together with some early Christians, he invented a Romanized script for the Vietnamese in order for him to be easier for his spreading of the religion. But at that time, we have Chinese as the official written script. So the scholar will study Chinese and all of the books would be in Chinese. But we also have Nom script, it's a Vietnamese script, and we borrow the Chinese character to write Vietnamese. So the Chinese cannot read, can recognize the character, but they would not understand the content. But then during the French colonial time, we officially changed the writing system to the Romanized system. But in Vietnam, even though everyone study and write in the Roman alphabet, but we don't really learn about how this writing system is invented. So I intrigued by this narrative and take it as a myth. And my watercolors is like a kind of imagination on how to reinterpret this myth and how it relates to contemporary times, even though we colonized by the Chinese and the French and then the American War, but then we never changed the speaking language, but we did change the writing system, and the language become a kind of very complicated power that dominates us that we don't really realize. Yes. Thank you.
This piece is at the entrance when you walk into the 22nd floor. You see on the left-hand side. Does anybody have?
I have a question to Cosmin. We are living in a multiculturalism, age of multiculturalism. So people prefer difference, multiplicities, rather than one. But why the title of this exhibition is One Beast, One God, and One Life?
Well, it's not only one God. It's not like one God. So there's already like a multiplicity in the title as well. It's lost and finished. And that multiplicity in a way is different than multiculturalism. When it comes with tension, it comes with upheavals, it comes with a very different ways of negotiating this difference. And well, you can take this as one reason why the title has an uneasy balance of things that don't necessarily sit with each other very comfortably.
Anyone else? Okay.
I think we can all touring this
Yes,
opening because
and
it's really nice.
So please do get a copy of our brochure. It has the explanation of each works, and we also have.
Make sure you go to the sixth
Sixth
floor and the
floor.
rooftop as well.
Yes. Thank you. Thanks everyone, and thanks all the artists. Thank you.